Welcome, dear multidimensional beings, to the Multiverse Employee Handbook, where we answer the questions you didn't know you had about a job you're not sure you applied for. In this episode, it's Orientation Day. First things first, let's address the hypercube in the 11th dimension. Yes, you're all in the right place, even if you can't quite define where here is. Don't worry, that's normal for your first day. Speaking of firsts, a short story to get us started. In the geometrically challenged realm of Flatland, where life was as two-dimensional as a politician's promises, there lived a humble square named Euclidean. She spent her days pushing perfectly straight paperwork across perfectly flat desks, dreaming of the day she might become a pentagon, or dare she imagine, a hexagon. Little did Euclidean know, dear listeners, that fate, that fickle mistress of dimensional tomfoolery, had plans more twisted than a Klein bottle with a superiority complex. One fateful morning, as Euclidean was busy contemplating the existential implications of her right angles, a message arrived. Not by email, mind you. In Flatland, they still relied on the ancient art of line mail, a practice so antiquated it made smoke signals look positively futuristic. The message, when unfolded, a process that, in a 2D world, is akin to a magic trick, read, "Congratulations, Euclidean. You've been promoted to manage our new 3D department." Now, I know what you're thinking, dear audience, and yes, I can hear your thoughts. Perks of being a multi-dimensional podcast host. But how can a 2D entity manage a 3D department? That's like asking a fish to manage a pet store. And to that, I say, precisely. Welcome to corporate logic, where the impossible is probable, and the improbable is in your job description. Euclidean, being the go-getter square she was, decided to take this promotion by the vertices and make the best of it. She began by trying to understand this mysterious third dimension. Is it like depth, she wondered, or more like thickness? Perhaps it's just width with delusions of grandeur. Her first day in the 3D office was, to put it mildly, a disaster of multidimensional proportions. She tried to file reports, only to find that the papers kept disappearing into what her new colleagues called drawers. A concept so alien to her, she suspected it was management's idea of a practical joke. In a desperate attempt to assert her authority, Euclidean tried to call a staff meeting. Everyone gather round, she said, only to find that round in 3D had a whole new meaning. Her employees clustered in a sphere around her, leaving poor Euclidean feeling like the punchline in a geometric joke she didn't quite understand. But our heroine was nothing if not persistent. She decided to tackle her new role the only way she knew how, by thinking outside the box. Of course, in her case, thinking outside the box meant thinking outside the line, which is really just a point. And, well, you can see how this might get confusing. As weeks passed, Euclidean began to gain a new perspective on her job. Several new perspectives, in fact. She learned to appreciate the beauty of a well-crafted cube, the efficiency of a spiral staircase, and the sheer absurdity of a coffee mug, a concept that in Flatland would be considered a portal to another dimension. In the end, Euclidean didn't just adapt to her new 3D role. She excelled at it. She became known as the manager who could always find new angles on old problems, who could add depth to the flattest of projects, and who brought a whole new dimension to the meaning of thinking outside the box. And so, dear listeners, as we close this chapter of our tale, let us ponder. Are we not all like Euclidean, constantly being thrust into dimensions we don't understand, expected to manage the unmanageable? Are our lives not a constant promotion into the unknown, where we must learn to navigate new dimensions of existence, be they physical, emotional, or dare I say, corporate? But perhaps I'm getting too deep, or too thick, or possibly too wide. It's hard to tell in this business. Welcome back, my multidimensional minions, to the basics of dimensionality, or as I like to call it, how to count your way to cosmic insignificance. Today we'll be exploring the fascinating world of dimensions. Buckle up your non-Euclidean seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride through the smooth fabric of space-time. Let's start with the basics, shall we? Imagine, if you will, a world of pure mathematics, where numbers frolic freely in fields of infinite possibilities. In this world, we find our first dimensional denizen, the humble line, the one-dimensional wonder. Now, I know what you're thinking. Dear host, a line? That's hardly exciting. I've seen more thrilling things in my morning coffee. And to that I say, but have you truly seen your morning coffee? Have you pondered the one-dimensional nature of that first sip, the linear progression from caffeinated bliss to the harsh reality of consciousness? But I digress. The line, my friends, is the alpha and the omega of dimensionality. It's the tightrope walker of the mathematical circus, balancing precariously between nothingness and somethingness. In the corporate world, it's the bottom line, the line item, the line of credit that keeps our multidimensional paychecks from collapsing into singularities of debt. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, or behind, or sideways, because that would require 2 dimensions. Yes, welcome to Flatland, the place where squares are people too, and circles are viewed with deep suspicion. 2 dimensions give us the playground of geometry, the canvas of art, and the spreadsheet of middle management dreams. In 2 dimensions, we find the comfort of the flat. It's a world of convenience, where everything is accessible with a simple swipe. It's Netflix without the chill, Tinder without the disappointment, Facebook without the existential dread. Well, 2 out of 3 isn't bad, but wait, there's more. For just 3 easy payments of your sanity, we'll throw in a 3rd dimension absolutely free. 3 dimensions, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary entities is where things get real. Literally, it's the world we know and love, or tolerate, depending on your perspective. It's a world of depth, of volume, of the ability to finally understand why that piece of IKEA furniture never quite fits together. Now, I can sense some of you shifting uncomfortably in your 3-dimensional seats. But host, you protest, we were promised multiple dimensions. Surely there must be more. To which I say, oh, my sweet summer photons, we're just getting started. Before we venture into the mind-bending realm of higher dimensions, let's take a moment to appreciate the practical applications of our dimensional understanding. In the world of computer graphics, for instance, we use our knowledge of dimensions to create virtual worlds that are almost as disappointing as the real one. Or consider physics simulations where we model complex systems in multiple dimensions. It's like playing God if God were really into spreadsheets and had a penchant for quantum mechanics. These simulations allow us to predict everything from the weather to the stock market, with an accuracy that ranges from occasionally correct to wildly hallucinatory. But perhaps the most important application of dimensional thinking is in the corporate world. Here we use our understanding of multiple dimensions to create organizational structures so complex that even the CEO needs a map and a Sherpa to find the bathroom. And speaking of bathrooms, did you ever stop to consider the multidimensional nature of a toilet flush? The swirling vortex of water, spiraling down into unknown dimensions, carrying with it our waste and quite possibly our hopes and dreams. It's a perfect metaphor for life, isn't it? But perhaps that's a topic for another episode. As we wrap up this segment on the basics of dimensionality, I want you to take a moment to appreciate the dimensions around you, the length of your patience, the width of your understanding, the depth of your confusion. For in the grand tapestry of the multiverse, we are all but threads, weaving in and out of dimensions we can scarcely comprehend. And remember, in the words of the great interdimensional philosopher, Isosceles Flatbottom, life is like a hypercube. No matter how you look at it, you're probably missing something important. Stay tuned, my dimensional dilettantes, for our next segment, where we'll dive deeper into the theories of multiple dimensions. And by dive deeper, I mean we'll be performing a metaphysical belly flop into the pool of quantum uncertainty. Don't forget your interdimensional towel. Welcome back, my interdimensional interns, to the segment where we attempt to unravel the fabric of reality faster than Stephen Hawking could solve a Rubik's Cube with his mind. I'm your host, and today we're diving headfirst into the theoretical ball pit of multiple dimensions. Prepare to have your mind not just blown, but utterly deconstructed and reassembled in ways that would make MC Escher say, "Now that's a staircase!" Let's begin our journey through the multiverse with a brief history of dimensional theories. Picture, if you will, a timeline stretching from the dawn of human thought to the present day. Now crumple that timeline into a ball, toss it into a black hole, and watch as it reemerges as a non-linear, non-Euclidean pretzel of paradoxes. That, my friends, is the history of dimensional theory in a nutshell. Or a pretzel, or both. It's hard to tell when you're dealing with multiple dimensions. But I digress. Our story truly begins with the ancient Greeks, those toga-wearing thinkers who gave us democracy, philosophy, and the idea that the entire universe was made of tiny, indivisible particles called atoms. Little did they know that these atoms would turn out to be as indivisible as a pizza at a particle physicist convention. Fast forward a few millennia, and we arrive at the doorstep of a patent clerk named Albert Einstein, who had the audacity to suggest that time was just another dimension, as flexible and malleable as a politician's promise. This led to the revolutionary idea of space-time, a four-dimensional fabric that's less like a nice, sturdy cotton and more like a lycra bodysuit stretched over the bloated belly of the cosmos. Now I know what you're thinking. But host, you say, your voices echoing across the quantum foam of reality. 4 dimensions seem so limited. Surely there must be more. And to that I say, oh, you sweet, naive hypercubes. Buckle up, Buttercup, because we're about to string you along into the wild world of string theory. String theory, my multi-dimensional munchkins, is the brainchild of physicists like Theodore Kaluza, Oscar Klein, and later the rock stars of theoretical physics, John Schwartz and Michael Green. It's the idea that the fundamental constituents of the universe are not point-like particles, but tiny, vibrating strings. It's like imagining that the entire cosmos is one giant cosmic guitar, and reality is just the song it plays. The only problem is, this cosmic guitar needs 10 dimensions to play its tune properly. Yes, you heard that right. 10 dimensions. It's as if the universe looked at our paltry 4 dimensions and said, "Hold my non-alcoholic multidimensional beer." These extra dimensions, we're told, are curled up so small that we can't perceive them. It's like trying to see the curvature of the Earth while standing on a ping-pong ball, if the ping-pong ball was smaller than an atom, and you were a being made of pure mathematical abstraction. But wait, there's more. Because apparently, 10 dimensions weren't enough to satisfy the insatiable appetite of theoretical physicists. Enter Edward Witten, the Jimi Hendrix of string theory, who cranked it up to 11 with M-theory. M-theory introduces us to the concept of brains. Not the zombified gray matter you're currently using to process this information, but membrane-like structures that exist in higher dimensions. Imagine, if you will, that our entire universe is just a giant cosmic fruit roll-up, floating in a sea of other fruit roll-ups, occasionally bumping into each other and causing what we primitively call big bangs. It's enough to make you wonder if the M in M-theory stands for munchies. Now, I can sense some of you out there in podcast land getting a bit queasy. Perhaps you're feeling a bit like Alice tumbling down the multidimensional rabbit hole, wondering if you'll ever land or if falling is just another form of interdimensional commuting. Fear not, for we have one more stop on our tour of dimensional insanity, the holographic principle. The holographic principle, proposed by Gerard 't Hooft and expanded by Leonard Susskind, suggests that our entire three-dimensional universe might be nothing more than a projection from a two-dimensional surface. It's like suggesting that your entire life, all your hopes, dreams, and that embarrassing incident at the office Christmas party are nothing more than a very elaborate screensaver. Imagine, if you will, that you're a character in a cosmic video game designed by some interdimensional being named Nolan Sims, and the universe is the screen. Now imagine that the screen is actually flat, and everything you perceive as depth and dimension is just a very clever illusion. It's enough to make you wonder if reality is nothing more than a very persistent hallucination, isn't it? But perhaps we're getting too deep, or too flat. It's hard to tell in this business. The point is, dear listeners, that the nature of reality as explored by brilliant minds from Einstein to Witten, from Hawking to 't Hooft, is far stranger, far more complex, and far more hilarious than we could ever imagine. We are but mere specks of consciousness, floating in an ocean of possibility, trying to make sense of a universe that seems determined to remain nonsensical. And yet, isn't that the beauty of it all? In a cosmos of infinite dimensions and possibilities, we find ourselves here, now, pondering our existence. We may be small, we may be insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but we are the universe experiencing itself. We are the cosmic joke and the cosmic joker. So the next time you're stuck in interdimensional traffic or dealing with a quantum anomaly in the office copier, remember, you are a multidimensional miracle, a walking, talking bundle of impossibilities made possible. Embrace the absurdity, revel in the mystery, and for the love of all that is holy and unholy, don't forget to file your tax returns across all known dimensions. And with that, my interdimensional income earners, we come to the end of our journey through the theories of multiple dimensions. Stay tuned for our next segment, where we'll explore the practical implications of these mind-bending concepts in your everyday multidimensional workplace. Remember, in the grand tapestry of the multiverse, you may be just a thread, but you're a thread with stock options. Welcome back, my cubicle-bound cosmonauts, to the final frontier of our interdimensional orientation. I'm your host, and in this segment, we'll be exploring the practical applications of our newfound dimensional knowledge in the workplace. After all, what good is understanding the fabric of reality if you can't use it to impress your boss or avoid that soul-crushing team-building exercise? Let's begin with a common scenario, the dreaded office meeting. Picture, if you will, a conference room. Now, picture that conference room existing simultaneously in every possible dimension, much like Hugh Everett's many worlds interpretation proposed back in 1957. That, my friends, is the reality of the multidimensional workplace. It's like being in a cosmic game of musical chairs where the music never stops, and the chairs are concepts your human brain wasn't designed to comprehend. In this multidimensional meeting space, you might find yourself sitting next to your alternate self from a universe where you took that gap year to find yourself and ended up finding enlightenment in a Tibetan monastery instead. Don't be alarmed if this version of you seems more centered and less likely to strangle the IT guy with an Ethernet cable. Remember, in the multiverse, there's a version of you for every possible life choice, including the one where you actually read the employee handbook. But I digress. Let's move on to a more pressing concern: office politics in a multidimensional workspace. Imagine trying to navigate the complex web of alliances and rivalries when your co-workers exist across multiple planes of reality. That passive-aggressive note about cleaning the communal fridge? It might have been left by a version of your boss from a dimension where passive aggression is the only form of communication. Or perhaps it's from the sentient mold colony that gained consciousness in the back of the fridge and is now gunning for your job. It's enough to make you long for the simplicity of Schrödinger's cat. At least it was only simultaneously alive and dead, not alive, dead, and passive-aggressive. Speaking of jobs, let's discuss the concept of thinking outside the box when the box is a hypercube. In the multidimensional workplace, innovation isn't just encouraged, it's a survival skill. When your competitors can literally rewrite the laws of physics, you need to stay ahead of the curve. And by curve, I mean the non-Euclidean geometries that define our twisted reality. It's like Bernhard Riemann's 1854 habilitation dissertation on a whole new level, or should I say, dimension. But fear not, my dimensional dilettantes, for we have an expert on hand to guide us through these murky multiversal waters. Please welcome Dr. Ima Flatlander, renowned multidimensional physicist and author of the best-selling self-help book, Who Moved My Quark? Embracing Change in an Ever-Expanding Universe. Dr. Flatlander, thank you for joining us today. Tell me, how does one succeed in a workplace that exists across multiple dimensions?
Well, host, it's quite simple, really. The key is to embrace the uncertainty principle not just as a quantum mechanical concept introduced by Werner Heisenberg in 1927, but as a lifestyle choice. When you accept that you can never simultaneously know both where you are and where you're going in the corporate ladder, you achieve a state of multidimensional zen.
Fascinating. And what advice would you give to our listeners who are struggling to adapt to this new multidimensional paradigm?
I always say, be the quantum superposition you wish to see in the world. Exist in multiple states simultaneously, just like Erwin Schrödinger's infamous cat. Be both the hard-working employee and the slacker. Be the team player and the lone wolf. Be the early bird and the night owl. In the multidimensional workplace, contradiction is not just accepted, it's expected.
Words of wisdom, indeed. Thank you, Dr. Flatlander. And remember, listeners, in the multiverse, there's a version of you that understood everything he just said. Now, as we wrap up this interdimensional orientation, let me leave you with a few practical tips for navigating your multidimensional workplace. 1. Always bring a towel. It's not just good advice for hitchhiking through the galaxy. It's essential for mopping up those pesky quantum fluctuations predicted by Paul Dirac back in 1927. 2. If you find yourself in a dimension where time flows backwards, remember to say thank you before someone does something nice for you. It's just polite, and it might help you avoid the grandfather paradox first described by René Barjavel in 1943. 3. In the event of a multidimensional merger, remain calm. Yes, you may suddenly have an infinite number of co-workers, but remember, you also have an infinite number of coffee machines. It's like Maxwell's demon, circa 1867, but for caffeine. 4. And finally, if you ever feel overwhelmed, just remember, in an infinite multiverse, as suggested by Alexander Vilenkin's eternal inflation theory, circa 1983, there's a version of you out there who's absolutely crushing it. Be that version. And so, my interdimensional initiates, we come to the end of our orientation. You are now ready to face the challenges and opportunities of the multidimensional workplace. Remember, in the grand tapestry of the cosmos, you may be but a single thread, but you're a thread with unlimited potential, stretching across the infinite loom of reality. Before we part ways, let me give you a tantalizing glimpse into our next episode. Prepare yourselves for Episode 2, Interdimensional Commuting 101. We'll be discussing such pressing issues as wormhole etiquette and traffic laws, dealing with time dilation on your morning commute, and our featured segment, Quantum Cooler Talk, discussing your weekend across multiple timelines. Until then, this is your host, reminding you that in the multiverse, every career choice you don't make is made by another you. So you might as well enjoy the ride in this dimension. Stay interdimensional, my friends.
Hi, this is Allie calling from Fairview, Pennsylvania. The Multiverse Employee Handbook was created by Rob Corrigan, is edited by Matt Parkman, and narrated by David from ElevenLabs. All science fact-checking is done by Mohinder Suresh. The Employee Handbook staff includes Claire Bennett, Hiro Nakamura, and Elle Bishop. Please be sure to subscribe to get updates on all new episodes.